not out of compliance on their senior debt coverage. They're not at 1.2. They started at 2.0. I remember this because we were sitting at about 1.3, 1.4. They're sitting at 2.0, and then they went down to 1.8. They actually are going to be under 1.2, according to their OS, their official statement. I don't know how they get away with it. I don't know what those rating agencies are looking at.
What's the Santa County Water Authority's rating?
We have AAA from S&P, and we have AA plus from, is that Fitch? And A3 from Moody's.
Okay.
And what our rating agencies say to us when we do the presentation is, and they've said it straight to my face, Maureen, you do as you say, and you always have. And that's the confidence we have.
Sure.
And the issue is we are way below in like debt service coverage because we don't keep a bunch of reserves, and we're way low to what the criteria is like for AAA. But they say what we have done over the years and how consistent we are and conservative we are, that they gave us finally a AAA. I'm very proud of it.
What reserves are your levels kept at, and what percentage of your total is that?
Yeah, total, including the bond money we have left for the rest of our capital, we're sitting at about 368 million, about that much. Some of it's bond funds for CIP. We have a pay-go fund, and as you know, we pay some of our CIP through bonds, some of our CIP through pay-go funds. We have a rate stabilization fund, which in drought years, sometimes if we're not selling as much water as we anticipated because the state cut it, we will pull from rate stabilization so we don't hammer our member agencies with these spiked increases. We really try to soften our increases as a result. So, and then we have an operating reserve, and I think it's, I'm not going to get it right, but it's minimum, maximum, and it's qualitative. It's like 1.5 times the necessary funds to, operate the basic system or something. I can get you that information. We have min and max, and we're very careful about it. We don't have a ton of money sitting around.
Thank you. Any other
Maureen,
questions?
did we have different reserves when we had more CIP? Because now we've become asset management. Has
Yeah.
that changed that?
Yeah, because when we were doing literally $1 million a day kind of construction, when you've got so many things going on, we went out for large municipal bonds. And so that was a huge amount. And we were running in maybe 700, 800 million because you'd bond, you'd put it in, and then you drew over, 3-4 years. The San Vicente Dam and the pipeline and all of the accoutrements, you're talking about $500 million. And so we would go out for that. We're very, very cautious about just-in-time funding, and that's why we like to keep, like our CIP bonds, we don't go out for more than we need in any given time. And we're very methodical about, we know how much money we're going to need in our CIP over a 10-year period, and we update it every 2 years, and we're really close. One thing for me is execution and real budgets. And so we're usually in that 90 percentile plus in our execution. We don't play high or play low. Don't ask for more. Because you know why in the end? I know who's going to pay it. It's the ratepayers. So I'm not thinking I'm imposing on you. I'm thinking I'm unfortunately imposing on you to impose on your own ratepayers. And this is the benefit I think I have from coming from cities, is I've sat through those meetings. I've sat through hearings. I know what it's like to be accosted in a grocery store because of a rate increase. I spent 20 years in cities, and I know those impacts and those stories. And I take that to heart at the Water Authority.
All right. Any other questions? Well, I'd like to thank both you, Maureen and Mina, for taking the time out to come up here
Yes,
and visiting our humble little district. We really appreciate it.
Very much.
You know, these are difficult discussions, but they're very informative, and I think they need to happen, so I appreciate you taking the time to do that. I want to apologize for my comment on 30 years of litigation.
Yeah, stop that.
It just seems like it's been 30, it's been probably 20 or so, but it just seems like it's been forever, so.
Sometimes it feels like dog years.
So, anyway, thank you again. Really
Thank you
appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Take a break.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. 5 minutes,
Sounds good.
a long 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back in session. So we're all the way up to the consent calendar. Okay, so all matters listed under the consent calendar will be voted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or member of the public requests a particular item be removed from the consent calendar, in which case it will be considered separately under action items.
Move to approve?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Carries unanimously. Okay, on to action items. 2.1, resolution electing to have sewer service fees for Improvement District A for fiscal year 2017 to July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018, collected on the tax roll.
Okay, so for those parcels that have, get sewer service but do not get water service, they're in Improvement District A, and we don't collect those through a monthly bill. We actually get the cost of the service added to the property tax rolls, and every year the board has to take action to approve those properties that will be getting their fees collected in that manner, as opposed to a monthly bill. The action, what we're doing here is setting the public hearing date, so we're not taking an official action now, but we're setting the public hearing date for July 19th. That's the action in front of the board.
Second. I think it's moving.
Discussion?
Go ahead.
On the date that we have it, we actually discuss the amounts and there's gonna be no change.
Yes, that'll be.
We'll be
there'll a-
discussing that.
There'll be a brief presentation, tell them what the rates will be.
I just want to make sure that hasn't changed just to those people.
No.
You never know.
And we do this, we do this every year, right?
Every year.
Yeah, very familiar with it.
Are we acting on the resolution today?
No, I'm setting the date.
We're just setting the date?
We're
to
setting a
act?
date for the public hearing today.
It is a resolution.
Oh, is it a resolution setting the date? Okay, I'm sorry.
So we are.
It's a resolution, but just to set the date.
Okay.
All right, then move to approve item 2.1 as presented by staff.
Second.
And moved and seconded to approve the resolution
Is there a
as,
speaker? I see somebody getting antsy.
Your speaker.
come on up. I thought you had your question resolved before we came back in.
I thought a little question that comes up,
No problem.
and that is, it appears that we don't annex these people into our sewer system. I wonder why we don't annex these, and if we're actually providing a service without getting a capacity fee in some manner. Thank you.
Yeah, they're in the sewer service area, they just don't receive water
Right.
service.
So they're annexed for purposes of.
Correct.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and this is a resolution requiring roll call.
Yes.
Yes? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, on to item 2.2, ordinance establishing administrative charges to recover indirect costs for FY 17-18.
Okay, every year the district establishes administrative charges to recover the indirect costs for the services that it provides. Staff uses the methodology that was provided in a cost of service study that was prepared back in 2013. And using that methodology arrives at an overhead rate of 221% for the coming fiscal year, which is slightly higher than the current rate of 205%. And there is an ordinance that needs to be adopted to establish that rate. So an example of why we would charge that, if we were to provide a service for somebody else, if we had to do work, say for an example, a fire hydrant or something got knocked over and we had to send our crews out there, we would take our direct labor costs multiply it by this percentage, and that's what we'd seek for reimbursement to cover both the direct and indirect costs to the district.
Director Hernandez.
And what percentage increase was that?
I think it's currently 205%, and it's going up to 221%.
Director Murray.
Yeah, would you explain that one more time?
Which part?
16%.
Yeah, why is it going up 16%?
John, is John in here? Maybe Minister Fusco can address the,
And have we talked about this before?
yeah, I think it's every year.
Every
This is my first
Yeah.
cycle through, but I believe it's every year.
We've talked about it more.
It came through during the financing, but I don't think it was brought up that it was gonna be 205% to 21%, a 16% increase. I don't remember hearing that anywhere at any time.
No, we haven't brought it up. This is now, we do this at the beginning
That's
of.
a 16% increase, that's a large increase.
Yeah, we do this at the beginning of every fiscal year, or just prior to the beginning, after the budget's approved. We bring this ordinance to you. If you look at the ordinance, on the first page, there's the formula as far as how it's calculated. And it's the budgeted indirect costs and employee benefits divided by the direct labor costs. In this case, in the year 17-18, which this rate would be applicable for, direct labor costs actually decreased from 16-17 to 17-18. While there were other costs that increased in the overall materials and supplies outside services budget. And therefore, just the math, the way it works out, you end up at the 221%.
When did we go through this? When was this presented to us, either in a finance meeting or at a board meeting? When were these numbers, just now? Or did you actually show what it was, the difference was gonna be between turning on and turning off? Or doing whatever it is?
I don't think this specific item was addressed at either a finance committee meeting or a previous board meeting.
Director.
I was going to say, back in 2013, I believe, what the board did at that time was we had that cost of service study, and we accepted the formula. We accepted the formula that each year we would use this set formula to determine the charge. So using the set formula, based on wherever the numbers go with the direct costs and expenses versus the indirect, that's how we come up with the amount. So it could go up 16% or it could go down 16%, but what we've agreed upon is the formula. And that's our nexus to the price, is we've taken what the costs are and used the formula, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, 100%
So
correct.
if we said it's gonna be a 0.25% of 90%, we always use that formula and have since 2013.
That's exactly right. What's in front of the board is not a discussion to revisit the formula. It was to apply the formula that the board previously approved with the numbers in the budget.
And we have used that formula since 2013 when we accepted
Yes,
the cost of
that's
service,
my
which is,
understanding.
I'm assuming also what we've done with our rates, we've had all our formula things.
Right.
Just happened to be 16%.
And just to clarify, or to make sure that everybody, I guess, clarify, this is not gonna have an impact on our ratepayers. This is not a rate increase to the ratepayers. This is an overhead cost that, should the district perform some sort of work, for example, if a contractor who's doing work in the district were to make a mistake or to break a pipe or something, and somebody from our district internally had to go in there and aid the contractor who was performing the work, this is what we would bill the contractor, not our ratepayers, right?
That's exactly right. So in that example, we would track our direct costs, how many people, how many hours did they spend, the cost of the equipment, and then we would put a multiplier on top of that to cover other indirect costs.
So this is one of those cases where 16%, in my opinion, is better than 2% because we're recovering our costs and thus not putting it onto our ratepayers.
That's clear. Director Hernandez.
Let me understand, it was 205, now it's 221, right?
Yes,
Well, it's
correct.
actually not, isn't that correct? Is that the right number? Yeah, it's actually not 16%. It's actually $16. It's only 7.8%.
No, it's percents.
It's a percent.
Well, it's always dangerous to compare
Wait a minute.
percents to percents.
Last year was 205% increase.
Oh.
The formula was
Oh, I see,
25%.
so that's a percentage
year-
increase, oh, so that is a
The
16%.
multiplier.
Right.
Well, I would like to ask that nothing else has gone up 16% in cost of milk, gas, labor, any of that. So I would like to see us next year take a look at our cost of service study, and take a look at a cost of service study to see exactly what our costs really are and what it takes to cover them. Because some of my ratepayers actually do have to pay that, and they think they're being overcharged. And, because they could do it more economically than staff or the contractors that staff is hiring. So, you know, it is what it is for this year, but in the future, I would like to see an update of that cost of service study.
Well, from my understanding, it's updated every year with a calculation.
Well, but my concern is that the calculation needs to be updated, because it may in fact not reflect the real cost of labor and materials this year as opposed to 2013.
I was gonna say, it seems to me, if we're taking the direct costs and the expenses, and we're applying the formula to it, it's capturing it except precisely, and as Director Sinell is pointing out, we are recouping the cost
Plus,
of the actual cost.
no,
No,
well,
we didn't make up 221, it was just that the formula, using the formula
Based on the approved budget numbers.
based on the actual costs and expenses, it turned out things did go up that much, whether it was indirect or direct. And next year, they could only go up 200 or 250.
I'm gonna have to see the numbers personally, because I'm not familiar with what the formula is and how they arrived at, I mean, direct costs are direct costs, I understand that. But then taking those direct costs, and I appreciate that the formula that's been established, it goes to 216. I'm just not familiar with the formula. Director Mark?
And I remember 2013, I remember the process we went through. It was fairly long and laborious. Everything was questioned all the way up and down. The question is the formula. I don't know if that formula is 4 years old. Is that still current?
Yeah.
It may not be. I don't know the answer to that. So I'd like to see us address this at least every 2 years to see if the formula should stay constant or if the formula should change. Because the
So-
formula might not be correct.
Yeah, I think the formula was just expressing a perspective or a concept that the board had. How do we collect these indirect costs? They basically said, look at your indirect costs, divide it by your direct cost, and it's a methodology, is all it is. But you're not stuck to the numbers of the past. And in response to Director Hernandez's concern, it looks at current day dollars and whether your indirect and direct costs are going up in the same proportion or in different proportions. The concept and the philosophy that the board espoused back in 2013 is still reflected in the formula. We're happy to look at it, if that's what the board would like.
I'm just-
My personal opinion is I'd rather see the formula. And no offense, not that I don't trust staff, but I'd like to see the formula. Because what we did in 2013 may or may not pertain to what we're doing here in 2017.
Well, the formula in its simplest perspective is on page, the second, it's on the ordinance that we're
Right.
suggesting be adopted. It's under section 3, and it just says budgeted indirect costs and employee benefits, that's a dollar number, divided by direct labor costs, that's a different dollar number. So every year, the numerator will be different and the denominator will be different, but the philosophy is the same. What are your indirect costs as a percentage of your direct labor costs?
Perhaps next year we can look at that again and just have it explained again to the board.
Certainly.
Rather than just,
And I would suggest maybe run it through the finance committee first, and we can run whoever comprises the finance committee at any point in time.
I think it'd be a good idea to not just assume that it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, I would suggest making it a component of the budget.
Okay.
As we adopt it, it's there in a paragraph stating what the new
Right.
proposed overhead rate is. I think that might be easier.
Mhm.
What, I did have a question, just a follow-up to Director Hernandez's comment, that, about he having customers in his division that, this would impact. And it kinda got me thinking, because, you know, maybe my initial thought on this was not correct, maybe it was. But can you give me some examples? Does the district provide services to customers where they would be billed this overhead rate?
Well, I imagine if they required plan checking services or inspection services, those types of things, but not a typical customer that we think of that just uses the water that we provide. They wouldn't be getting hit with this, but if they ask for an extra service, a special service, for which we've established a fee schedule, those folks would be captured in here. So I don't know if there's any other examples, Director Hernandez, but those types of things
Yeah,
you're referring to?
those are the ratepayers.
But I have an example, is what about the seasonal customer that wants the water turned on and wants the water turned off? That's gonna address them.
I don't know, so
Yes.
if there's a turn on or a turn off, so maybe
I
you
think
guys.
you
can
have
address that.
established rates for those
Yeah.
specifically, those kind of.
That's a fee, it's not a recapture of indirect costs. So
Yeah.
that would be
It-
per
it's
the
not-
board.
It's not like you track the actual labor hours to do that. You have a
Right.
set fee that's established each year, or
Mhm.
periodically is reviewed.
I was reading the ordinance also, and it does state, is this, and I don't know how this relates to these various customers, but it does say that if there's direct costs and expenses incurred by the district, such as legal services, permits, reproduction services, consulting engineers, they are recovered at direct costs only, and the administrative overhead charge does not apply. So does that affect, and it also with, do any of those also affect the other customers you were talking about? Was it the special permit
I don't believe those would be captured in that exception in section 1
or two?
or 2.
So folks who are trying to get a plan check would or would not be subject to the overhead cost?
I thought they would be, but I'm not sure. Tom, can you?
If the service is I think we have a fee schedule, so if it's just I don't know for sure on that. I wish James was here to answer that question. I can look it up pretty quick on the website, but if it's a specific service, we probably have a specific charge for that, and this would not apply.
So-
But if there's any services where we don't have it on our engineering fee schedule, then this would apply.
Yeah, and this is becoming more of an important question for me, because while I was not on the board in 2013 when the formula was drafted, I have been on the board the last few years when this has come up before, and there's been a couple of times where we've had this discussion, and prior year staff has been very clear that this would not impact our customers. So I don't think it will. It's certainly not of any significant number of our customers. There might be some folks that are building a custom home out in the middle of Twin Oaks or something that may or may not, have be subject to this cost. I don't know. I don't think so. But I'd like to know that. So that's, because that kind of makes it, the way it's been presented before is that it would not impact our customers.
Question. Does that mean that when we turn on a customer, turn off a customer for vacation use, turn them off and turn them back on, whatever that charge is, has been the same since 2013? Or has that gone up year by year?
It's been the same, it's under review right now. We are looking at what we call miscellaneous fees. And we're looking at those and doing some analysis on that right now, and probably have something back to you this fiscal year to.
Okay, so when you
address
lock a
this.
meter, same thing? That's
Yes.
miscellaneous fee?
Yes.
I'm thinking of all the fees we went through in 2013. None of them have changed in 2013 because this doesn't apply to them.
Well, but I think the same methodology is used to establish set fees on your fee schedule. I think you go through kind of the same analysis on what your total costs are to do these things.
Yeah, we look at what the amount of time it takes to do something, for instance.
I would
But it hasn't
suggest,
changed, is what I'm saying.
right, well, that's, to my point, my comment I'm about to make, I would suggest that this be a normal budgetary task every year as well in developing the budget, that you routinely evaluate the existing fee schedule and include that in the budget deliberations to say, hey, look, you know, some of these fees have gone up, we think they need to be raised, or, but I think it should be done every year, so,
Okay.
my opinion.
And I agree with you, Mr. President. I thought that that's what we had agreed to. We were going to a one-pay increase January 1st, and we do it all at one time. I thought that was the agreement that we had with staff. Apparently not, because here we are with something else. I mean, why aren't we doing this all at one time? I thought that's what we agreed to do.
That would be my suggestion, is to do it every year in the budget process.
Yeah, I'm writing a note here to do that.
Well, is there a pressing need to pass this tonight? Can we table it until more information is provided and bring it back to a future meeting?
I don't believe there's anything pressing. If the board would prefer, maybe just some clarity on exactly what it is you'd like to see brought back so that we can get it back in somewhat of an expeditious fashion.
And based off of, we've debated this, we debate this every year. And, based off of prior conversations, I came tonight in my preparation for this meeting, prepared and comfortable to approve it as presented by staff. But clearly, there's a lot of questions and unanswered questions, and that perhaps waiting until the next meeting or the meeting after that might be prudent.
I second that.
Okay, we have some direction to table this to a future meeting. I don't have a problem doing that.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, just to get more clarification, that's all.
We can do that. We'll re-agendize it. We'll bring I'll come back with a list of the types of projects and activities that would be and would not be affected by this action.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, on to item 2.3. Consumer confidence report.
Okay, every year the district is required to prepare an annual report that provides the water quality test reports, test results for the drinking water provided to our customers. Postcards were mailed out to the citizens, our customers, a while ago, informing them that the consumer confidence report would be available by June 30th. So there is some work that needs to be done, and this is one of those steps, is that the board approve the consumer confidence report. And Ops Manager Pedrazi will make a little brief presentation. It'll be very brief and be available to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, General Manager Broom, President Ellithorpe, members of the board. Beginning on page 45 of your board packet is this year's Consumer Confidence Report. Just a little background, the US EPA established this rule in 1998, and every community water system is required to produce this report and get it out to the public by June 30th every year. To answer one of the questions that the previous speaker had of the public, perchlorate's not listed on this report because it's never been detected at any of the treatment plants on the effluent side. He is correct that there is a little bit found sometimes in the Colorado River, but perchlorate is predominantly a groundwater issue. The reason for that, it is coming from, ammonium perchlorate, which is a part of rocket fuel. So the Department of Defense and NASA used to dump this stuff on the ground, and it got down in the groundwater, and in the 90s they started finding it. And so it got into lettuce and other stuff, so it's been an ongoing fight. Actually, the water agencies have been pushing the EPA to develop a standard for this, and they kind of been dragging their feet. So the state of California actually accelerated the process. So we're ahead of the game as far as perchlorate, but it is non-detect out of all of our treatment plants. The wording on the report and most of the formatting is dictated by the state and the federal government. So the picture on page 1 and a little bit of the wording on page 2, that's about all we get to do. And all of it has to be approved by the State Water Resources Control Board before we can bring it to the board. In the past, we've been able to get it to you in May. So if you saw something, had questions on it, you might be able to make a change. Unfortunately, this year, there was quite a bit of delay coming from 2 of the treatment plants getting the information to us. and then the state sat on it. And we just actually got approval last week. So we
Yeah.
barely made the board packet to get it to you.
And to the point of listing things that have been non-detect, there's very clear direction, and there always has been from the state that you can't do that either.
Correct. And we do provide links to the actual Metropolitan and San Diego County Water Authority Excel files that they send to us. This is very small. You would look at an Excel file that's pages and pages of chemicals that they've tested for and repeatedly found non-detect.
Director Martin?
Yeah, I understand this is all required by the state, but I have to tell you, before I got involved in the water industry, and I sat at my home and I'd pick this thing up and I'd actually read it, I'd look and I'd go, I'm never gonna drink water again. It's got a little of everything in it I'm not supposed to have. So it doesn't give any confidence.
That's their wording.
The opposite of what it
Yeah,
says.
we used to call it the water quality report, and then the federal government required us to call it the
Right.
consumer confidence.
My question is, the postcard that was sent out, does that come from you?
No, that comes from public relations.
That came from Chris?
I believe so.
Then I have a question to go back to staff, going, you know, anytime we have an opportunity and we're gonna be sending something out to the public, it should have a flavor to it. It shouldn't look like, I'm big government, trust me, which is what that looked like. That looked like, that looked like a bean counter's wording. It was just very sharp, to the point, and no warm and fuzzies. And you can put warm and fuzzies into it, but still saying what you have to say for a postcard. But anytime we communicate with the people, we should have some type of positive image with it as well. That's just normal. We sent out a card, unbeknownst, unseen by this board, by Vallecitos Water District, so we couldn't make comments on it, even if we wanted to. And to be honest, it's the first time I realized we even sent the postcard out, and I've been here 6 years. So I want to thank people for letting me know we send a postcard out every year. But when I got it, I looked at it and I went, wow, is this cold? Is this what I want to represent Vallecitos Water District? I don't think so. Could have been done nicer, I think, for the same cost. And it's mandatory, but just something to think about for next year.
You know, we can certainly work to make it a little more user-friendly.
Yeah. Put a smiley face on it, do something. You know,
I'll
do
tell
something to
you
make it
what,
look, I
they're
mean,
extremely strict on what is required.
what you have to say, yeah, I understand that.
Well,
You have
I
put
mean to
that
the
in.
point of putting smiley faces on things. I mean,
Well, I'm
it's-
going a little far. with
I
saying
know,
smiley
but
face.
it's very strict. We tried to do this early on to
Yeah.
make it more user-friendly, and got shot down.
So I took Director Martin's comment to be specifically about the postcard and not as much the report itself. Is that?
Oh, yeah, the
that's what
postcard.
you're getting at?
Talking about the
And we
postcard.
probably have a little bit more
Oh,
latitude
yeah,
in
the
the
report, you gotta
postcard,
do what you
but,
gotta do, I understand that. but-
there may be regulations
Yeah.
or restrictions on our public noticing as well that we have to be aware of.
Right, but the postcard is what I'm talking about, not about this. I understand this, but the
Okay.
postcard.
Any other questions?
Staff would recommend then approval of.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consumer confidence report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Carried unanimously.
And with that approval, we'll post it on our website so it's available prior to the June 30th deadline.
Okay, item 2.4, 2017 public rate hearing notice.
Okay, this is a really quick item. This is on page 53. The only reason this is in front of the board is that there's been a slight change in the date. Last time we talked to the board, the preferred date for the Prop 218 public notice, or public hearing, was going to be September 6th with a backup date of September 20th. And kind of informally working with board members and their availability, we are going to move it back to September 20th. So I just want to make sure the board's okay with that date of September 20th for the public hearing.
So we'll all be here.
Yeah, it's important that everybody be available.
All right.
Do we have to approve that?
No, I don't need anything. If you're all comfortable with that date, that's all I need.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, I have a request to speak from Mr. Hunsaker.
For the record, Mike Hunsaker. During the process of developing the new rate structure, there was a dramatic change in the basis of how rates would be assessed. And this goes from usage factors and historical to meter size. And there was two examples given, one for 5/8 inch meters and another for 3/4 inch meters. And it was quite obvious that we were talking apples and oranges in some of the usage factors, because the highest users were getting a discount. And most of the biggest percentage changes were for the single-family dwellers. I didn't see a lot of evidence justification for such a radical change, and it would appear that we need more information. I'm particularly interested because one of the things that I pointed out earlier, more than a year ago, was the tenants of apartments were getting a 60% increase in rates. I'm not saying that necessarily wasn't appropriate, but it seemed like tenants should have some rights and some more notification that they receive. And I would like to see you just approve the Davia apartments, which uses 12 2-inch meters. I'd like to see some comparison between what a single-family dwelling, say with a 3/4 inch meter, would get versus apartment dwellers on 2-inch meters. I'm not at all impressed with the evidence presented. I find the previous historical method much easier to follow, much easier to justify, and much less challengeable. And there's also the question of large changes in the reserve policies and how money flows through VWD. I'm just putting this as a placekeeper for comments for future discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, just like to add real quickly, the only change that was made on this public notice is the date of the public hearing. So all the other information contained in here is the exact same as the director saw before.
And we just need move for approval?
Yes.
I'd like to move for approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve item 2.4.
There was only 2 rate increases, right?
Yes.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Carries unanimously. Item 2.5, CSDA Special District 2017 Board Elections.
Okay, CSDA is seeking to fill a seat in its, what they call their Southern Network, which is seat C. 5 candidates have submitted statements of interest for this opening, and staff is asking the board to select one candidate if the board chooses to select a candidate at all, and that selection will be forwarded to CSDA.
Anyone have any preferences?
Now, is this just to nominate them, or is this to actually select them?
Nominate.
It's,
This will be this will be our district's vote. These are the people who submitted their names through some process for consideration.
Oh,
I'm sorry, what did you say?
On the last election with this group of the board did select Irving Shea.
Okay, thank you.
we did select, I'm sorry.
Arlene Schaefer.
The board
I was-
voted for
I
Arlene
was
Shea.
gonna- I was gonna, may I make a comment?
Sure.
I had read through them, and she does have a pretty impressive resume and been involved a long time. So I had put a mark by her, and then I just wondered if anyone was curious, Michael Mac is more close in being out of Fallbrook, although he doesn't seem to have as much. I just wonder if anyone knew Michael.
Well, he also was a San Marcos, City of San Marcos employee.
He was.
Right, I saw
believe he was
that.
with the Park and Rec. Recently have met Michael Mack. He was at the legislative days that I had participated up in Sacramento, and he was part of my group that was going around lobbying the legislators up there. So I don't know him well, but I can tell you from just the short interaction I've had with him, he seemed very passionate. I think he's a relatively new board member at Rainbow, and he was, at least in that effort, he was giving it all for whatever that's worth. But I don't know any of the other folks, and so at least with Michael, he's up in Sacramento fighting the good fight. I mean, that's always a good thing. The others might have been too. I just don't know.
I kind of appreciated that he was someone in our territory, and I think new experiences and points of view can be very beneficial. So that was where I was at between those two.
And I think I would appreciate Michael, because he's being a new guy, he doesn't have all the answers, he's gonna ask a lot of questions. That's why I worry about those boards never asking questions.
Okay.
Sounds like there's sense.
Well, I'll make a motion that we, recommend or vote for Michael Mack at Rainbow Municipal Water District?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to cast our vote for the candidate Michael Mack. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Carries unanimously. Okay, item 2.6, Aqua Nominating Committee call for nominations for statewide positions of president and vice president.
Yep, so Aqua's looking for those nominations. They're due September 1st. Candidate interviews will be September 11th, and the election will take place on November 29th at the fall conference.
Okay. Do I hear any nominations?
You going for it, Mr. President?
I thought Mike was gonna go for it.
Yeah. Mike?
He's not listening.
Oh. You say something?
But I guess we do have time. We have till September 1st.
Till September
Somebody-
Oh, we got plenty.
And we would need to submit a nominating resolution, so if the board did select somebody, we'd have to come back with a resolution for approval, for adoption.
And if we do nothing, then it just evaporates.
Yep.
Right, thank you.
All right, I guess we'll move on to reports. 3.1, General Manager's Report.
Okay, just a few. We have recently added a video on the district's website. It's a historical video about the Vallecitos Water District, so it's getting a lot of action. It's gotten several thousand views, either on our website or through other people who have either retweeted it or made some other connection. We're getting a lot of good feedback on there, so that's good. And it's right on the homepage and just at bwd.org. It's kind of on the left side, kind of in the spotlight section.
Where did it come from?
It was compiled by Chris's group, it was put together. Yeah, take a look at it,
I
it's
will.
really good, very interesting.
That's a lot to get me to go to look at.
The next one's kind of a good news story. So the district works really closely with schools in the service area. We'll attend functions, and we'll either invite them here and give them a tour of the facility, or we'll attend other functions, and we'll try to educate the students. And in particular, the San Marcos Elementary School is really involved in these types of things. And recently, we had done a couple of events, one at Jack's Pond, and we had another one with the Splash Lab that the San Marcos Elementary attended. And their teacher and their administration actually encouraged the kids to put together a nice thank you to the
Oh,
district.
nice.
So I'll pass it along, but it's really neat, and they're really expressing their appreciation for all the work that we did. And I want to give a shout out to the teacher and the administration for teaching kids manners. So it's really important to do these types of things, and I think we should acknowledge that. And I think it'd be a much better world if we all said please and thank you more often. So
Are you sending a welcome?
I'll pass that along for
Yeah,
the
are
board to
you
take a look
you
at.
sending a thank you back?
Yeah, I'll thank you for your thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll see how long that goes back.
Oh,
Very
wow.
interesting. Yeah, it's very well done and very
Uh-huh.
cute pictures in there. Next item, Water Academy. So every year, the district does provide a Water Academy. This year's no exception. We're targeting the date of Thursday, October 19th. So just trying to gauge the board and see if that's a date. So it's a Thursday. It's an all-day thing, as you all know. It does involve some participation by the directors, come and welcome people, maybe have lunch with the folks, attend some of the sessions if you'd like. I don't need a specific answer today, but we are starting to, lay the groundwork, and because we do ask people to sign up, so we do need to pick a date. So I'll communicate with the board kind of offline and make sure that we coordinate the calendar. So just start thinking and put that date of Thursday, October 19th in the back of your
Hey,
mind.
Glenn, through your planning meetings on this, has it been decided how many people are gonna be allowed to participate this year? I think some years we've had one bus, some years we've tried two buses, because obviously it's a very popular tour.
Yeah.
There's usually more demand than we have availability. Are we doing one bus, two bus?
I talked to Chris, and he suggested the number of 50, because when you look at the citizens that participate, as well as the staff members that go with, that'll probably take up, if not one bus, it'll get us into two buses. But if we think if we think two buses is appropriate, we can pick a higher number. And part of the planning process, we'll try to get a maximum number of people that we can accept into the program. My experience at some of the cities I've worked at, these are well-attended. A lot of people like to go to them. So I guess it's a good problem to have to turn people away, not that you want to, but it shows that people are really interested in the program we have.
Absolutely.
And Glenn, we will be again, seeing as Vallecitos Water District ratepayers are paying for this, they're the only ones that are invited.
Yeah, that will be one of the requirements, that you have to live in the service area.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's the
Yeah.
requirement.
I don't know how rigorous we'll be in terms of verifying, but we can look for, show us your address and we can verify that. And the last thing I wanted to talk about in the report has already been touched on, just to let the board know that the appellate court had made its final ruling in the rate case. And I did reach out to the County Water Authority and ask them to put numbers together to say, if the appellate ruling stands, what does the number mean? Originally, at the trial court level, it was, the damages were set at $234 million, plus about $9 million in attorney's fees. The one loss that the Water Authority had was a big loss, so they didn't win on all the transportation charges. So how far it will take that $234 million down, I don't know yet, but.
And that was roughly about half of the total damages, I think.
I think it's probably more than half
Oh, was it?
for that. So, I mean, I think we won on like 5 of the 6, but unfortunately, the one we lost on was a big.
Biggest single item.
Yeah.
But didn't we hear that this is gonna be raised again to see if we can get to the Supreme Court and let them make the final
Well,
decision?
sure, and our general counsel can address that better than I could.
Okay.
But if either party elects to go take it to the Supreme Court doesn't necessarily accept it. They
All
may
right.
say it's-
Yeah.
They might not take
But
it.
it could be years before this is resolved.
Yeah.
And unless there's any questions, that's all I had.
At the last board meeting, I asked, because we had a meeting early on, the audit, yes, we had it on the 14th, the audit committee meeting. We were gonna be having a second meeting, and you said I'd get back to you. I assume we're not going to have one, we never got back to each other. For this month, it'll be next
Oh,
month.
for a finance committee meeting, or
Yeah.
for the, yeah, so we're not gonna have one this month, but we'll schedule for next month.
All right, thank you. The district legal counsel.
Back in 1999, listening to this tonight, there was a group of North County agencies, including Vallecitos, that, I don't know, with early 2000s filed a lawsuit over the Water Authority's transportation charges. And they raised many of the same arguments that are being raised in this case. I'm happy to find that in the archives and send that to Glenn so he can send it on to you so you can take a look at it. But from a historic standpoint, these things, very tough cases. And, it was over the fact that, as I think that Director Elithar pointed out, that, Fallbrook's a lot closer than, Chula Vista, and it's a postage stamp rate that was being charged. So, things change, but they remain the same. I will say, though, that I would like you to invite your attention to trial court, or to a case that just came down last week that involves wastewater service charges. And the case was a class action case, was filed against the Ramona Municipal Water District. And there was CASA and CSDA, there was the Association of County Governments and League of Cities were all amicus curiae participants in the appeals court case. Again, I'll make sure I share that with Glenn and he can pass that along. The Ramona uses an equivalent dwelling unit system to calculate their wastewater service fees, and parcels are assigned EDUs and charged for sewer service on a per EDU basis. The district levies fixed sewer rates based on the number of EDUs assigned to each connection. So it's a fairly similar type of process that's been used, that is used by sewer agencies throughout the state. And the attorneys for Ramona were initially able to get it knocked out on a grounds that the plaintiffs didn't exhaust. It's a concept in law called exhaustion of administrative remedies. And basically, their argument was, hey, look, this was, you can't bring this suit if you don't bring up these issues during the public hearings that we considered these rates and charges, and frankly concerning, during the adoption of the budgets. And there was ample evidence in the record that this was sort of a after the fact thought. And they said, hey, these were mandatory administrative exhaustion remedies that you needed to take plaintiffs before you did it. That's the trial court agreed. However, unfortunately, the Court of Appeal did not. And basically, I won't go into all of the nuances, but they just said that under 218, what plaintiffs had made the necessary effort to put them on notice. And so now the court is going to go back, it's going to go into phase 2, and it'll go back down to the trial court to discuss the merits of the case and to see whether or not this thing is going to be something that we need to be affected by, if you will. So it's an important case. We'll keep our eyes on it and report back to you, but I'll make sure you get a copy of the recent decision.
Who was the plaintiff again in that case?
It's a class action suit.
What was it?
Plantier was the name of the title of the plaintiff, but they actually certified this as a class action suit, which is.
Yeah, was it the San Diego Estates? It was developers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're this is over the sewer fees, which
Right.
normally these cases, these 218 cases have come on the water side, so this is another sign. That's all I have to report.
All right, thank you. San Diego County Water Authority.
Well, actually, there's quite a bit, but one of them is about a legal, and you probably saw in the paper where I believe it's the Briggs Law Corporation is suing the San Diego County Water Authority for having, they're saying that they've been holding meetings with the MWD delegates, who really are not a legislative body, but it's not a Brown Act. And I have the meeting tomorrow, so I won't know a lot to tell you, but what I did want to share with you is that one of the things that's come out of it is that they've done what do you call it, public?
PRA request.
Yeah, a public record request. And they're asking for 27 areas of importance, and they want all correspondence, phone messages, texting, everything from January 1st of 2016 to June 17th of 2017. So if you just multiply that by the 38 board members plus staffing, you can just imagine what an incredible involvement it's going to be to compile all that. And of course, nobody knows where it's going to go in the Brown Act. But I just thought it's interesting that we're all going to be digging through everything to just look for little references. So this, watch what you write and what you keep and what you don't delete. If you've already deleted something, they can't do anything about it. But if you cannot delete as this moment because you've got the notice, so There was a lot of talk about how much people piled up over time. So it gets pretty difficult, yes.
A question I don't know the answer. Metropolitan gets its 6 delegates from the County Water Authority.
It gets 4.
4.
There's 4 delegates.
Okay, it's 4.
Uh-huh.
And there are 4 that serve on the San Diego County Water Authority Board.
There are 4 out of the 26 on the water board.
Okay, are they elected, non-elected, doesn't matter, all they have to do is be on the board?
No, I mean, some of them are appointed because they represent
Okay.
San Diego City.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was my question, I guess. Are some appointed, they're all elected? That's all.
No, they're variety.
Do you know what the breakdown is right now?
I have to think, Michael Hogan,
Lindenberg or what, Captain Carlsbad?
I think, 2 of them would be appointed. One
Several
might be a
general
GM.
managers, several general
And the
managers.
other's a G, and,
Gary,
Keith.
Tom Kennedy.
they're not on it.
Oh, they're not on it.
No.
Oh, I thought- I was
There's
just
just the
talking about
4.
the board.
Is Keith
So,
on it still?
I don't think
Keith
any of them are
Lewinger?
elected, actually. I think that we've got, I want to say Keith Lewinger is appointed GM. Keith is a,
Does the water-
Example, Dale Mason served on both
I
the Water
know.
Authority and the Med Board for many years.
Right, but I just wondered if that was a prerequisite of getting on Met, is you're serving on San Diego County, well, that's who's sending you to Met.
Yes.
So you should have to serve, I guess. I don't know if there was a criteria as to elected and appointed,
Yeah.
because the 600-pound gorilla down there is the city. Do they get 2 votes automatically? I don't know the answer.
oh, and I don't know, and I'm sorry, I can't answer that for you, Hal, but what I would say is there's not, as in general, there's nothing about are you elected, are you appointed, are you a GM that goes on with the decisions. I think
Okay.
it's, a lot of who's on Met that I've seen are people who've been around a long time and have a lot of history with it. And there's been a few who have stepped down after they've been on for personal reasons or whatever, but I don't think that's it. And the issue that's in this is just that you can have a pre-brief. Well, they're trying to claim that if the 4 delegates go to a pre-brief with staff to talk about what's coming up on the agenda, it should be a public meeting because it's a quorum, but they're not a
It's not a
quorum.
quorum of the board.
They're not part of, it's a small part of our board, and it's a small part of the Met board.
They're not a quorum.
So, I don't think our attorney in particular, he just says this is something, this company, I believe you were saying it might be out of state, they do it all the time, they just sue for whatever, so. But my point to you is it's really amazing to get a notice that says you need to dig through everything for a year and a half of time, and they're looking for 27 very bizarre, everything from did you use the word Brown Act in a text message? And it's just incredible when you think about how much info. So I thought I'd throw that out. And then I've got your little what's hot thing here, but I did want to point out on June 20th, the state administration did release its proposed budget trailer bills relating to the long-term water use plan, efficiency plan. And if you want to see it, it's a 60-page docket you can find online. The proposed bill reflects modifications by administration in response to all the people who've been up there lobbying. The urban, agricultural, and economic communities have been lobbying for not hitting us with those hard regulations like the 55 gallons. And the administration has indicated it does intend to advance the proposed language through the legislative policy committee process, and at this point does not intend to go as a trailer bill, which was our big fear. So in that sense, that's great. And then the Water Authority, as of date, has already started reviewing that 60-page document. So it was impressive that how much work's gone into just getting the government to agree not to do a trailer bill instead of, and allow it to go through the process it's supposed to. I mean, the fear is always there if they don't like how the legislative work groups are doing, they could still throw it out again. But that was a positive note. And I'll hand these out to you. And the biggest thing I'm going to point out on the what's hot thing is that tomorrow we're supposed to be deciding about 2 bills. I think it's on page 2. this is about the water use efficiency standard and the water shortage, and we're, that's not what I want to tell you about. No, what's next? Oh, the public goods charge, we're going to go up there and lobby against it. There's a real strong push to add a $1 or $2 public goods fee to the water bills of everybody, and it's sort of vague at this moment with what are anticipated, and it originally started out about nitrate buildup in the water and in disadvantaged communities, and that's kind of what they're using for it. But it's real easy for it to be extended beyond, and if you look at page 3, it will tell you how much money is still available in other sources. So we're going to really push that the government will pull it out of general funds. In fact, I don't know about how much money's in it, but if you're familiar with the cap and trade funds, a lot of that money, there's like 40% of it that just sits in a fund, and over the years it's like $4 billion. But they don't want to give that to take care of the water needs of these disadvantaged companies because they want to hold it communities. They want to charge the ratepayers. And then I thought you'd be interested on page 4. It just talks about how much the Water Authority's been engaged, and you should, they really need to be applauded. There's been someone up in Sacramento every single week, and one of the budget items coming up in one of the committees is to actually expend, it's almost, I think it's like close to $95,000 to actually take on a new consulting regulatory advisory group that's up in Sacramento and familiar with it, because they're just, it's all become regulatory and not so much legislative, but regulatory through the Water Authority, the Water Resource Control Board. So you can read that for your own amusement, and you can see the Little Hoover Commission is going to be stepping forward with some considerations. The roundtable is on the 22nd, which is tomorrow, right?
Yep.
So we'll be curious to see where that goes. And then I, skip that one, I'll be really fast here. We are going to be passing our budget, hopefully, and that reminds me, I have a copy of the budget for each of you. And it's actually really pleasant reading, surprisingly. There are some, and they do a good job of trying to show where, in the budget, where the savings are and where the innovations are happening and what they're trying to do to keep the costs down. They do not normally supply these. They were a little surprised when I asked for them. So if you're going to read it and then you don't want to retain it, unless you've marked it all over, I'd love it if you bring them back. But if you want to keep it for now, that's okay too. That was just, I want to be sure you had an opportunity to try to get that to you. Also doing the rates, and the last one was, we're doing a transfer, and I know when Nina was talking, she talked about the water transfers that go on, and I remember one of our first tours, when we did the Central Valley, Director Martin and I, they talked about, we were up there with, is it South Tropic? Semi-tropic, that's what it is. Well, as it turns out, the Water Authority has retained some space up there that we haven't used for storage, and it's now becoming a possible item that we will be able to lease out to someone else to use it for storing goods. It's not a lot of money, but it's something the board is going to look at and consider doing so that we can have some other agency pay us a little bit of money for the space that we're have empty up there. So I thought that was pretty.
So that would be separate from that storage program?
Yes, has nothing to do with that. This is just our own. It's not a lot. I'm going to forget it's minimal.
Yeah, they pay a retainer every year, and then there's a per gallon or per
Yes.
acre foot.
It's not like we're
storage charge.
making a lot of money, but it kind of sets that we're trying, as well as all the other.
It diversifies the supply portfolio.
Yeah,
So
it
that it's not
does.
all coming from that.
Yes, it does. And then the only other thing you might be interested in off the top of my head is that the San Vicente energy storage that we've been working on, this has been going on since 2013, I think. It's been a real slow process of, do we want to do it? Do we want to get involved in it? But at this point, we're going to be stepping into step 3. They did a survey and they got 18 businesses and partners that would love to partner on it, because it's nothing we could afford to do on our own. And the next step is now getting a group together and figuring out how to work that out so we can move forward. But it's gone from kind of scary to more and more enthusiastic support, and it looks like it could be a great thing in today's world with the renewable energy.
Is that Kelly Rogers? Is she the project manager?
Yes, I think it is.
It is.
Do you know, it is Kelly.
She's kind of their energy person.
Yeah. But the meeting's actually tomorrow, so I don't have any results per se, but I wanted to share all that with you.
Well, thank you. That's a lot of information.
I know.
Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
All right, moving on to the Encino Wastewater Authority Capital Improvement Committee.
Yes, unfortunately, I missed the committee meeting, but I called Mike Steinlich and he gave me an update. The big item on the meeting was the approval of a survey for resources and management to take in additional sewage from both septic and construction sites, and to see what that would take and what benefit it may provide Encina. So that's going to be a 60-day program that we'll hear about in the next 60 days. That was it.
That's a good deal.
Yeah.
All right, for the Policy and Finance Committee, I did not attend. That was on the 13th. I couldn't attend due to illness, but it was a pretty, from what I understand, it was a pretty routine meeting. So I think the only items of note were investment policy annual review and amending the EWA financial reserve policy. So, and I didn't get a chance to talk to Mike about it, but
Well, he's off on that memorial anyway for his mother, so I just have
so
to catch
and I
up.
believe those items will be coming to the board
Yes.
meeting next week.
That's great.
All right, standing committees, I don't think we've had any since
No.
the last board meeting. Have we?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Finance did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's right, there was a finance committee.
Yes, we did. Director Snell and myself met with our accounting firm,
Auditing firm.
huh?
Auditor.
The auditor, did I say accounting? The auditing firm, which is the one that says, I don't promise anything, but here, you got a good job going. Don't call me. They're really nice people. This is their 3rd year, so next year we'll be looking for putting that back out to bid again, because we only keep them for 3 years per our ordinance, I do believe. It was their entrance meeting. We discussed a few things. I was very, very happy. I was thrilled that they actually found some exhibits. No. What was it, John?
There were 2 time cards.
2 exceptions.
2 exceptions.
2 exceptions. I was so excited that they found something wrong, because they're normally perfect, and that always makes me nervous. They found 2 exceptions.
Well, that's something John probably planted for them. to
I
do.
think, yeah, because last year was the widgets. He had a widget at a place. But this year was 2, which was no big deal. But they said everything would come to them, and they'll be back to do all their finals just as they normally will, and they'll be presenting to the entire board. But I was happy to see that. They did have an exception or a question about the way that pay increases are handled. Generally, they see them handled as someone from HR deals with someone in payroll, where we have someone in payroll deal with someone in payroll at this time. And my answer to that was, John, do you like it the way it is? He said, yeah. I said, well, for my money, it's up to what you see as fit. They didn't say it had to make a change, but they said there could be a change you could make. But, you know, it's like, John says, it seems to be working perfectly the way we have it now, so why change anything? And I kind of agree with that, unless he wants to make a change, I think it's fine, the way it's happening. But other than that, it was perfect. They had nothing but nice things to say of our staff, as most of us do, most of the time. So it was a great day. Thank you very much. I also read in one of the other reports, I read in your groundwater, your engineering equipment committee meeting, and I read through that, and I actually read where my question had come up about Meadowlark Reclamation Facility. And does it make money, does it lose money, is there a need, is there not a need, can we get rid of it? And from reading just the notes I have here, the answer is, we have it, we're stuck with it, learn to love it. So I don't want to see any money spent on that, because in here you have an in-staff report, and that, I was the one asking the question about it, an in-staff report that would cost about $15,000, and I think that would be a waste of money on our part to spend any money on it, unless someone else wanted to know. I would certainly withdraw and say, please save that money and give it to a much more worthwhile cause to the committee, and let the committee make a decision. And that's all I have on committees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, directors' reports on travel, conferences, seminars. Start with Mr. Snow, Director Snow.
I have not attended any since last time we met.
Okay. Director Martin.
Yes, I attended Public Policy Committee meeting from SNEDIC, San Diego North Redevelopment, and it was at Escondido City Hall, actually, in the Mitchell Building, which was very nice. And I thought it was very interesting that Mitchell, John Mitchell, which I had heard of many, many years, I didn't know his nickname was Lefty, although he was a right-handed person, so it made me curious. I don't know why that is. I'll find that out, but maybe you know. So, nickname was Lefty. Anyhow, we had legislative reports from Darrell Ice's office, Patricia Bates' office, Rocky Chavez's, Marie Waldron's, Bill Horn, and Kristen Gaspar's. The guest speaker was Mayor Sam Abed talking about progress. But in the old business, which is where water really comes into it, they talked about a couple of bills, actually 3 bills. AB 1323, the Sustainable Water Use and Demand Reduction that's been floating around. Also talked about AB 968, Urban Water Use, and a new one, AB 869, which I didn't get the full gist of what they were talking about, so I'll have to look into that. Healthy California Act, and that was very well as we met some other people from other water boards there. But I will allow someone else who was at the meeting to talk about that. Very worthwhile.
I attended the same meeting, and it was interesting because, there's always concern, why you go to these meetings, you really accomplish anything? And the information from all the different states and the Fed direction was informative, but we did meet with a consultant who works for the district, and he's kind of a consultant that's in the background. He's not one of the major engineers that we see all the time. And so that was informative, and so I think, although superficially it doesn't look like it's worth it, I think if you attend and you listen, it's definitely worth it. So that was my report.
Yeah, and I will mention, there was another GM and 3 of her board members.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure who that GM was, but
Yeah,
her
it was,
and 3 of her
it
board
was
members.
Kim.
Yeah,
It was Oleidenheim.
Not to mention any names.
yeah.
Yeah. Always the same one.
Director Evans.
Well, I would like to comment on, for Director Martin, AB 869, was that the one you mentioned?
AB 869.
Is that the one you didn't catch?
Probably.
There's a little bit about it and what's hot, and that particular one is where they're working really hard to make recycled water considered new water,
yes.
so it
Right.
doesn't, is
Yeah.
not part of the future water use reduction. That's the most of it. It actually passed the Assembly 469-1 vote and has been double referred to the Senate Natural Resources and Water Committee and the Senate Environmental Quality, and they are scheduled to be considered in the Senate National Resources on June 27th, which must be next week. So things are kind of moving along, but there are the 2 bills. I don't, off the top of my head, 1323, I think that's the Weber bill.
It looks like it's sustainable water use bill.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, I was thinking
It's
that's
called.
it.
Sustainable
And it's
Water
probably
Use
in
and
here
Demand
as well.
Stakeholder working group.
Oh, that's right, the group.
Yeah.
So, the only thing I've been at was the Cowley yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't hear.
Oh, yeah,
any-
that's
And,
right, yeah.
um,
My, how time flies.
I was waiting to hear from
I would
the
love to
others.
hear what you all thought.
We heard.
Thought anything.
Well, I will start.
Not about this, but what
Oh, no.
from yesterday, how you would.
We heard virtually the same thing, and it was a plea for, can we all get along?
Mhm.
And taking it with a grain of salt, well, yeah, if you charge us fairly, we could. So It's just two stubborn kids in the sandbox fighting. Not gonna happen.
Big expensive.
I got
sandbox.
two things out of it. I've been going to this now for 5 years. And now that we have a new president running the thing and new staff, we can afford to buy 15-foot by 6-foot piece of velvet and close off the front window so that we can see what's up
You know
on
what?
the board. That's silly.
It is silly, and you know what, originally people kept saying it was the projector, and I actually talked to Glenn, and I said,
Just
if
a
we need to buy a new projector, I'll buy it. Can't be that much money.
Too light in
But, it was the worst we'd had because the clear sunny day, and then Tom and I were back there going, there's not curtains up there, but there's nails, and I said, I'll go get some shower curtains. So we did talk to Therese, and she said, part of the problem is they set that projector up about 5 in the morning, it's never an issue. And then she, I guess, none of us, even though we've really complained directly about it. So she was gonna talk to, was it Dawn?
Jeff, or
Yeah, to see if we could take care of it. So I'm gonna come with something
Okay.
next time to nail up there.
That was one thing I got out of it. The other thing is, I thought that maybe some of the problem was, when I first started going to them, my first 1 or 2 meetings, they actually held them in a different room. And maybe it's
Yeah.
because of that. I don't know the answer.
It's the amount of people is in cost, I'm guessing.
I'm
is
just saying, the other room,
why.
they need a curtain, so
Right,
now you do.
that might have been for special treatment because it's been in that room for years.
years and years and
Okay.
years.
Oh,
We
okay,
have-
there were.
Yeah.
And still nobody
It
hired,
might
thought
have
a
been
curtain.
for a specific purpose, but I will be following up on that to make sure that there wasn't enough on that.
And then the second thing that I noticed was the gentleman from Met.
Randy.
Yeah, he just kind of cracked me up, because it was kind of like, well, the lawsuit's gonna take care of that. And it's like, well, it didn't. Because the lawsuit took care of it, you appealed it. So the lawsuit isn't taking care of it, because it's gonna be appealed to death. So right from there, I took his level of.
Sincerity?
Yeah, his level of sincerity to be very, very low from that point.
Yeah, he's very humble pie.
Yeah, it was like, can we all just get along? It's like, no, if you had the winning hand, you're not saying that. If you have the winning hand, you're beating the other person to death with it.
I would like to ask you a question on that, Jeff.
Okay.
So we've just had this ruling. If we're appealing it, or they're appealing it, did that put everything on hold, or do you only appeal a certain portion of it? So in other words, does everything stand on hold until the whole thing is reviewed by,
Yes.
okay,
Because what you'll have what they call cross appeals, where
okay,
there'll be aspects of it that the water authority will appeal, and there'll be aspects of the ruling that Met's going to appeal. So there's gonna be this various cross appeal, and then the question is whether or not the court is gonna wanna hear, the Supreme Court's gonna wanna hear
Mhm.
all of it, part of it, none of it. These are the kind of cases, though, that, you never know for sure, but these are the kind of cases because this is new things, and these are the things that are kind of, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Supreme Court ultimately rule on this.
Yeah, I mean, since it
Yeah.
affects 19
Affects,
to 20 million people.
Yeah, and it does
it's
have a lot,
half
there's
the
a lot of
people in the
issues.
state.
It's not your routine case
Mhm.
that comes up that's already been decided for many years, so.
it's a big benchmark, I know
Yeah.
that.
I mean, the case.
just didn't know if it
Yeah, I
only-
mean, the North County case that we had, back when it was supported was about $100 million case, which in the early 2000s was a pretty substantial amount of money for a handful of North County agencies.
Yeah.
So,
But interestingly enough, I thought tonight that the parts that were won are so critical to our ratepayers, whether we get into the one that's the big moneymaker, just to know that our rates were illegal and that the fees were illegal, and so, but I know we'll just have to be stacking up rate
I mean,
lawsuits
for
till the
what
end
it's
of
worth,
time.
that integrity thing was just really dirty pool. I mean, that was really, all that was just purely punishment.
Yep.
Mhm.
Just purely punishment.
What integrity thing?
Well, they were arguing that, all these programs that they had offered to us before were no longer available.
The local projects
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
It was
I got
just,
it
it was
That was
really.
$250 an acre
And
for
it
the
was on-
subsidy.
and it was on
that
everything.
taken away.
we were,
Well-
you know, it was really unfortunate, because we were, at the time, there were North County agencies that were looking at, hey, they felt that the desal plant was so important that even if the Water Authority didn't want to do it, we were gonna try to get some other, agencies together to see if we couldn't figure out how to do it. And one of the important factors was be able to get this, reduced, this credit that Met was offering, but because of their lawsuit, that was off the table. So it's a really nasty business.
It was, and then what was even more galling, and you don't think about it at the time, is that we're paying much more money in than anyone else, and then they're using that illegal to fund all of their projects and denying us any as well. I know one of the fears is that they'll figure out a way to have us, and I think you brought this up, Director Sinello, about, are we gonna end up paying back our own attorney fees? So there's a lot to be handled in this whole thing. I did think it was interesting that Mina said they've done the largest conservation project with the turf replacement, and yet never addressed the issue that everything about it was such a scam. It was the largest, but I would say it was one of the largest, what do you call it? Yeah, incredible.
That's pretty disheartening to hear.
It's really disheartening to hear.
It's disheartening, I agree. It's not surprising from an organization, quasi-government organization like Met. I think that you find that at the federal level, the state level, the local level, and throughout government. And I'm trying to recall back a year and a half ago when this stuff was going on. That turf replacement program, I think, it was very popular. Everybody was, clamoring about it. I think we probably promoted it. I don't know if it was theirs or somebody else's,
Oh,
but.
But you know what? The Water Authority did promote it. But the Water Authority's program had a cap on how much you could make.
Required
use.
receipts.
It had requirements, it had timelines, and you had to prove that you had irrigated land. There were people in LA who didn't even have to have irrigated land, who got it to replace something they didn't even water.
I
So,
agree that it's
we
certainly
did
a mess.
support it, and some of our people did benefit from it, but not, those,
Yeah.
Well-
we paid for all of it.
If you haven't read the book yet, Cadillac Desert,
Mhm.
you must read it, because it is just classic Metropolitan Water District. That's the way they've been operating for as long as they've been in business, and so shut up and move out of our way. We're gonna do what we wanna do. So,
Yeah, but that, you can until you look at.
until somebody
or-
slaps you upside the head.
Or how significant our overall budget is for water purchases. That's why I was asking the questions about, their benefits for their employees.
Yeah.
If they're that unorganized and inefficient with a program like the turf replacement, I could only imagine how inefficient they are from top to bottom. And so while we're on this topic, I don't know if it was really clear for staff or not when I brought it up, shortly after the presentations, but I would be certainly supportive to have staff come back at a future meeting with a resolution supporting
Yep.
the Water Authority's efforts in this lawsuit.
Yeah.
I was gonna bring that.
Yeah,
up
me
with
too.
the Future
I think
agenda,
we all were
just to
headed
make
that
sure.
direction, but
Yeah.
thank you very much, Mark.
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
A strong letter of support. How about that?
Other business,
Like
in the
stone
package
tablet.
is information on the CASA annual conference. I think a conference agenda's in there in your packet. 5.1, director's comments, future agenda items. We just talked about the resolution of support. Was there anything else?
Yeah, I have a question. At our last meeting, at the end of our last meeting, I brought up and had full concurrence that we wanted to get information on Hollandia Dairy and what went on, how it went on, where it went on, how long have we known about it? How long have each one of our employees known about it? And that was 2 weeks ago. Now, I forget, but I think your vacation in July, I think you're missing the first meeting, would that be correct?
Correct, I'm leaving June 29th, and I won't be back until July 13th.
Okay, so that means we're gonna wait a month from now to get that information. On the
Well-
board meeting of the 19th.
So my plan on that, we've had several meetings, staff has been meeting, we've been going through that, we've been putting together the timeline, and my thought was to send out a memo, an email to the directors to address the concern by the council or the board. I don't believe it was, my recollection wasn't that it'd come back at a board meeting, it was provide us with information. So I was gonna provide information, and if, after reading it, any of the board members want it to be agendized to have a discussion, we can do that.
If that's legal to do, I didn't think it was, but Jeff says.
Well, we
that's
don't
legal
wanna
to
have
do,
it
I'm
back,
fine.
we don't want back and forth, but certainly if
No.
the chair, if there's sentiment to have that come back, you're gonna, just at this meeting, you've got the ability to say, hey, I wanna see it back on the agenda.
Yeah.
So, but don't hit reply all, okay?
Right.
That's
You-
the issue that we get.
They're all familiar with my practice.
Yeah.
When I send something to all the directors, I blind copy them, so if they accidentally hit reply all, it doesn't go, there's no crosstalk, no chatter amongst them.
And
And I'll
just so
continue that.
that you know, my concern was serious and real. I don't want a whitewash answer. I want to know exactly who knew what and when. And with other information that may or may not be known out there, we can combine it to find out who knew what and when, and why the board wasn't told. That's my question. And I really don't want it cleaned up at all.
Well, part of
So
what-
as we do it in public, I know it's open in public.
Part of
If
what
we
you're
do it
gonna-
behind closed doors, I'm not as happy with that.
No, I'm not suggesting it be behind closed doors.
Well, all I'm saying is give us an answer.
Yeah.
We don't have a chance to talk, we can't confer about it. The only place we can confer about it is here.
Right. Part of what you're gonna hear in the reply is that we were directed not to share the information because it was a federal investigation.
Do you work for the federal government? Do you work for this board? It's a
would
very simple question.
Understand.
It's a very simple answer. We work for the people. That's who we work for, that's who you owe everything to.
No.
Not to the federal government.
But I would not expect any of these employees to put themselves at risk of federal investigation and federal sanctions because they shared information they weren't supposed to share.
Absolutely.
I agree with that totally.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that's even a possibility today, but.
Too bad. If they said, in
No,
my
I don't know
opinion,
if the feds can say that.
well, if they said it, then that's, I would not have any of our employees be put in any kind of jeopardy about, well, should I say it, shouldn't I say it? You said don't say it, I'm not gonna say it.
Jeff, as a quick, what's your observation on that? Can they be told?
Well, I think would be really careful, because I'm not aware, I haven't had any discussions, specifically with Glenn over this. And I think that to the extent it involves specific employees and specific facts and circumstances, that's not something to be talked about necessarily in open session.
I agree.
So, I mean, but we'll get to the bottom of it. We'll make sure that, you're aware of what we're aware of. Okay?
Okay, but I do want a ruling on that question that was just brought up. That this federal investigator said not to say anything, so I
Okay,
can't.
and I've got to familiarize
Did that come
myself
from a
with
federal
what was
investigator?
said and what the circumstances.
There was a federal investigation, and when we were informed, and I wasn't here, as I understand it, when the federal investigators were going through their process, we were directed not to share that information because it was a federal investigation.
And please bring whatever writings you have on it that went to our attorney, that went to the general manager, whatever you have from the federal government specifying that, please feel free to bring that so we can look at it.
Nothing went through my office, I can guarantee it.
There was just one guy standing there telling another guy, hey, that doesn't count.
Well, I would like to say that what's most important to me and to, I think, the ratepayers in this particular instance is not some sort of a witch hunt about what we did or didn't know. There's no way, if there's an investigation going on, that everybody needs to know about it, and there's many reasons there's not to know about it. What I think the most important thing is that they have stepped forward and said they're guilty of this, and by the way, it's not Hollandia Dairy, it's Diamond Environmental. And they've admitted it, and I think it's our responsibility to spend our time deciding and proving how they've damaged us, how the ratepayers have been just benefited by what they did, and give our compensation back. That's what's important to spend our energy on. And I'm happy to know, but if there was the feds or even the police or someone told this is an investigation, you don't go around making allegations until you have proof. And there wasn't obviously proof until this came forward. So I'm just letting my opinion is that the ratepayers want us to spend the money and the time and the energy on getting what's owed us back and making sure that that business doesn't get away with doing that kind of, excuse me, blank word again. That's where I'm at. I don't want to waste a bunch of time and money telling people to run around and dig into the past. Can we just, for once, move forward?
Okay, are you done?
I'm
now?
done. Yes, I am.
I couldn't agree with you more. That's really what we want to get to. But the GM asking employees one-on-one is not spending a bunch of money. It's asking the question, when did you know, how did you know?
Yeah, I would suggest we keep this agendized for a future board meeting, and we can talk about kind of the overall issues and timeline, and we can talk in closed session if need be on matters that are sensitive as far as individual employees or anything like that.
Yep.
I would suggest we keep it agendized.
Yeah, I would agree, and also I like the idea of the closed session because while I agree with Director Evans, that is definitely an avenue that we need to focus on. If we don't at least do what I believe is a deserved thorough investigation on the communication piece of it especially, we're destined to repeat that mistake. And if there was a mistake made, so we need to look into it. We need to study how things were handled, any incident, be it this one or any other incident that occurs. So we have a good understanding of what happened, and that if there were any issues that could either lessons be learned, anything that could come out of it that would help better us in the future, I think we need to know about that and have that discussion.
Yeah, I agree. Director Hernandez.
One of the items that was tried to be accomplished was the closed session relative to the property. And I don't know, I don't know how urgent it is that we get to that issue, but I don't want it to linger much longer than, through the July. So if we could find that out and then get a consensus.
You're talking about all the properties owned by the.
No, I believe it was just the one.
meeting with
It was just adjacent.
Adjacent property.
Yeah, the adjacent
Oh,
property.
Knoll Road property.
But we couldn't get a quorum, which we need to get a quorum.
I thought we had a decision made by this board when we went to 5 o'clock, that we would hold our closed sessions at 4 o'clock before the meeting.
That's right.
That's how it is. So when is this
Well, we have,
fussing around to get a quorum?
what we do,
You know
we
what?
need a quorum, we
don't-
need a quorum, though.
We do
didn't
need a
have it.
quorum.
Yeah, well, we
But-
didn't have one.
But when we've all said we're gonna be here at 4, and it's the day of the meeting, what's this hour difference? Or we should have said, we're gonna do it late afterwards at 10 PM. This, finding another day when we've already set up a policy drives me crazy.
Well, I'm
And
just
the
saying that with the
calendar's
policy we
jumping all
had,
over. The policy said we should have our closed sessions when we have a meeting. It doesn't say we pull one every time somebody can't be there, or we already have a meeting, we know it's our meeting day. So I'm very frustrated that that event in particular, I'm sorry, I'm frustrated very much now, but I'll calm
You have a lot of
myself down.
frustration.
It's just that we went through that entire thing about 5 o'clock. We all agreed we'd do it 4 o'clock before the meetings. We all have done closed sessions unless there's an emergency situation. We've done them on the nights we have our meeting.
Was it the fact that we didn't have a quorum or we didn't have unanimous?
It was a couple things. It wasn't unanimous. There were some dates that we picked that I didn't think we'd get a quorum, and an important staff person wasn't available. So it
That's-
doesn't, I don't want to have a closed session and not have the appropriate staff.
yeah, that's,
Exactly.
It's a waste of
that's
time.
the important thing.
I had sent an email to Diane and to Glenn, I think earlier this week, suggesting that the 27th would be a good date that I would be available to attend the meeting.
That what?
The 27th. I think the question by Director Hernandez was, what's a good date?
So it'll be next Tuesday.
Yeah,
Yeah, that works for me.
So I'll check with the appraisers' availability.
Okay.
We still won't have James. James won't be here. He's on a 2-week vacation.
Well, then I
That's
think
a-
that's critical.
Well, I'd say I
well,
wasn't aware of that either.
wait a second,
so-
wait, let's not jump. Why is James so critical?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he's been the staff person that's been handling this, and I'm fine. If the board wants to have the closed session without him, I just want to caution the board that there's questions that are very deep in nature we may not, staff may not have the answer that we would if James was here.
Was there anybody else?
I think you
in
need
Cambridge?
all to be here and get him here and the consultants here. There was difficulty scheduling the consultants.
Ah.
And this is just a tough time of year, but we need to all be together. It may even take longer than an hour. I mean, there's a lot of issues here that you need to kick around, so
That's
it's an
my
important.
concern with the 4
It's a,
o'clock.
you
I
know,
think
that's
I'd be-
it's an important meeting,
I don't
so.
think it's gonna get hashed out in an hour.
So I-
We
you know,
can't even
just-
hash out the meeting date in an hour.
You know, I think just let them coordinate it, it's important, I think we'll get to it, but just let them make sure everybody's around, you know?
Well, my recollection on the setting of the closed session time, it would be before the board meeting at such a time that we think we can complete the item. It wasn't necessarily at 4. If we think we need an hour and a half, we'll start
Yeah.
at 3:30.
Okay.
That was
I
the
don't
way it was.
remember that.
But I agree, we do need to
I don't remember
have
that part.
everybody at
I don't
this.
remember that part at all.
So I would like to suggest, for me, when the email came, I did not realize we were coordinating that many people, nor that it was essential that there were all 5 board members there.
Right.
So all I saw was, surely 3 of us can make a closed session happen. Now I understand that that didn't work, and that's why we're picking a different date and time. But normally, it should be on the date of the meeting.
Right.
The other item that I had was based on the manager's meeting with the city relative to South Lake. And I'm not gonna say anything further than that until I absolutely hear the tape again. But what the report came back was that the city is working on a plan. The plan that was delivered, emailed to me, was not the plan, because that was a 2010. It was way, way overblown, although it was a nice plan. And that it was being entitled, did they happen to tell you what entitlement they were trying to? I'm struggling to find out what entitlement they were talking about, but I'm staying personally on top of this because I want access to that lake. I want our ratepayers to have something to point to. So I'll talk with the manager.
Oh, yeah. Just like to add to that, I would like that piece of land
I'm gonna-
added to our land.
I'm gonna kill him right now. I'm gonna
Added
come
to
over
our
the top
land
of the
stock.
table right now, put in, fill in.
Add
Was
the
it
word
fill in?
somebody is how it is.
Yeah,
Get out of
did he
the
say
way,
fill it
or-
in? Did you actually say fill it in?
Yeah.
I'll fill it in, yeah, you said that.
Here,
I'm glad that's on the
I'll
record.
give
Yeah,
you easy.
get
Martin,
that.
Martin Hill.
Board member attacks board member.
So,
All right.
we're not having a meeting, are we having a meeting?
Yeah, that's my question too. What
Is it
about the
gonna be after
27th?
meeting Or before the meeting?
I can't make the 27th, I have another meeting up in the desert, to the extent that,
Is that our next board meeting?
it's another board meeting up in the desert.
No, the 27th. is
No,
that-
that's,
no.
it's
It's
Tuesday.
not.
It's the
Okay,
date
that's
that
right. Oh, that's next
directors
Tuesday.
Just have to
Sure.
be available.
But James won't be there. I would prefer James was there.
Yeah,
So
Well,
it's
I don't
not
think it's-
urgent, and as
it-
long as
yeah,
we know we're
exactly.
working on it, will you be all right with that?
not that,
May take a
critical,
while.
but-
Are we
Get-
meeting
Eight.
on July 5th?
Tentatively, yeah, there's been no cancellation. That's one thing I don't know if it.
So can we hold the closed session July 5th after our meeting? Because I don't think
I
an hour and a
won't
half
be
or
here.
2
Glenn won't be
hours.
I won't be here.
Oh,
But again, it's, how many pieces of the puzzle do we need in place?
no, we need all the players there. One more meeting is not gonna kill this deal one way or the other. And so, but if it takes more than an hour, we're gonna do it before the meeting. Let that, decide what it
Whenever
is.
it is, Mr. President, just let me know, I'll be there.
Thank you.
The next question
That's the
is,
best thing I've heard on it.
is that what we're gonna, when are we gonna get to all the properties? You said you were putting a report together on all the properties?
Well, so you already have the map, and you have kind of a summary there. We'll start, we haven't been working diligently on that, so you have the map, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was email,
Yeah,
everybody
and
was
it's got a
emailing.
table on there which shows the majority of the information. And what I also told the directors is that would be incorporated into the strategic planning process, to
Oh.
give direction whether we want to move forward with anything regarding the property or not.
Okay.
All right, are we good? Any more director's comments?
Just if the meeting's gonna be longer than an hour, I don't wanna start at 4 o'clock and only get half the meeting done before
No.
the
Right,
board meeting.
understand.
That's silly.
No,
So I think if it's that important to do, which I think it is, we've been waiting for long enough, let's get all the players in there at the same time and
Yeah.
give it ample time for a lot of discussion.
There's no clock.
there would be a lot of discussion on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost think you have to, I mean, it could be a 4-hour meeting, so I think you almost have to do it afterwards. Otherwise, unless we meet at 8 o'clock in the morning, just to be safe.
Well, we could do that too, but,
You need time to get bandages on me from Jim,
yeah.
patches on.
It'd be a shame to have a clock.
I just had one, if I may, like one closing
One-
comment.
one more.
One tiny one. I really do want to say thank you and kudos to staff who I feel myself, I have been more than overwhelmed with information and decision-making, and I appreciate all that we're asking you to do, and I know it feels like we'd never let up. I do want you to know it's appreciated, because I can barely keep up with the reading, and I know you had to at least do one draft to get it to such perfection. So I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
That was the final comment.
I would have to,
No, no.
he's the president. He has the gavel.
One more for you.
I would like to thank staff too for a brilliant change over the years from where we were to where we are today. Where we were was running the district in one direction, and we are today running it in a different direction, a different way. And I think it's great for our ratepayers. I think they hear a lot more of what's going on. We're very open out there, come to our meetings, we're televised. That's a huge change for staff to make, and I think they did it very, very, very well. And I want to thank them for making a great change.
Well said. All right. Seeing no other comments, I hereby adjourn this meeting.